Jaded to the rescue.
Yes, you should.
I only have these. I thought we were showing up for one night.
Two of you read. That's true. One of our friends. It's crazy. Now you've heard my narrative of complaints. Good evening. because it will be a good evening. This is an intimate evening of story, and those of you who don't know me, I'm Loran Brown, and I will be your MC this evening. First, we would like to acknowledge that Trinity Western University is located on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Stolo people. Pursuing our theme of truth and reconciliation this semester, we've had the opportunity to reflect on nonfiction work by First Nations authors, and we hold their stories in our hearts. One of my great joys as a mentor to young writers is the trust we establish in our classes. Our lives are rarely simple, as you can see. The honesty with which we explore them is a blessing essential to our healing as individuals, as people of God. Grab a program. During the past few years, the pandemic has generated losses and innovations. In March 2020, our Cherished Vignettes event was abruptly canceled along with everything else. In 2021, with help from Jeff and Becca Gibbons, we pre-recorded and live streamed our video essays, extending our reach. And tonight, because we have the login, you can find the recording on YouTube. Woo-hoo. Since then, we've been continuing to enjoy these hybrid events, so we're glad to see you in person, and we welcome those of you who are watching the live stream and the subsequent recording. So this class is listed as MCOM 369, Adventures in Narrative Nonfiction. As an added bonus this year, my MCOM 453, Editing for Newspapers and Magazines class produced a 110-page literary journal, the 4th issue of Static magazine. This year, the Serendipity issue features sub-themes of action, anomaly, and aftermath. For some students, these classes offer the first opportunity they've had to look at their lives and experiences as raw material for true stories, memoir, travel writing, personal essays on topics in which we're passionately interested. I'd hazard to say that the opportunity to tell our own stories is an antidote to the temptation others might feel to resort to artificial intelligence. AI cannot fake the individual voices you'll hear tonight. What I learned through editing narrative nonfiction stories, one former student editor suggested, is how important it is to write from a place of passion. I could tell that the author was invested in the content they were writing about, and it made the topics more engaging for the reader. In the magazine, if it ever arrives, you'll find stories written by tonight's authors, along with stories by members of the editing class themselves. The editors have worked with the individual writers to develop and refine their stories. We'll reveal the fruits of their labors. Just before intermission, I'm changing that around a bit, I will show you a sample copy, a coveted, precious, single copy. But over the years, I've asked my editors to share at least one thing they learned about narrative nonfiction through the process of editing the journal. An English major tells us storytelling is a way of life. I don't have anything against fiction, but what could be better than basking in people's real life stories, especially your peers with whom you share a 4x4 classroom for 4 whole months. Childhood is for the memoirist to explore. What do we take and what do we leave behind on our journey through life? Tori Martinez tells us about the suitcases and boxes that we take. Tori.
Can everybody hear me here? 2 suitcases, 1 carry-on, 1 backpack, and 1 purse. That's how much space I'm allowed in which to pack a bit of everything I own. And not even that, because there are 5 of us, and things like recipe books take precedence over Polly Pockets. Chiang Rai, Thailand is a long, long ways away. So what do you fit into a little less than 2 suitcases, 1 carry-on, 1 backpack, and 1 purse when you're a 12-year-old moving across the world? Number 1, a Kindle. Very, very important. Can't be deprived of my 40-something Warriors books or my recently read Lord of the Rings. And how else am I supposed to read Harry Potter for the first time? I'm a books girl, and will probably continue to be one for the rest of my life. Number 2, a strong stomach. Korean Air may be a really nice airline, with friendly flight attendants and little bags filled with blankets and mini toothbrushes, but the food is not for the faint of gut. Good thing mine is nice and strong. I thoroughly enjoy the strange food. Number 3, homeschool books. Thankfully, I'm going to skip having to go through the whole middle school in a new country experience, because my mom thought ahead and bought me an online program that I totally won't cheat at and then feel guilty about later on. But it'll also be perfect for going to explore as a family, whether it's trying out a new grilled fish restaurant or visiting the 15th 20 baht shop in a row. Number 4, khaki capris and glasses. Fashion? What's that? They're comfy and they match everything I own. Every shirt I own, all 12 of them. And everything is better if I can add my brown chacos to the whole ensemble. I don't care about things like contacts yet. Putting in extra effort just to look like I'm not wearing glasses? Ew. I'll stick to my oval, wire-framed, pink glasses instead. And because I play basketball and football, I have to have my wraparound ones as well. The ones that make me look part cyborg and more than part tomboy. Life would be so much easier sometimes if I wasn't a girl. Number 5, 2 sisters. Not a lot of choice there, and they won't fit into my suitcases. But my parents are already warning us. We're each other's best friends. Sometimes, more often than I'd like to admit, we'll be each other's only friends. Number 6, a sense of adventure. People are already asking if it's going to be hard to move to Taiwan, but I don't think so. My parents are pretty smart. They're saying this is an exciting thing, something to look forward to. And why wouldn't I be excited? I'm learning to say, so what the crap? Though later I'll learn it's actually pronounced sawadee-ka. Oh well. Boxes and boxes and boxes, and suitcases upon suitcases upon people upon memories. That's how many things I have to choose to leave behind. I've lived in the same 2 places my whole life, traveling back and forth every semester between the mountains of Calandria and the city of Chihuahua. Now I don't know when I'll see either one again. So what do you leave behind when you're a 12-year-old moving across the world? Number 1, Molly and Stormy. My stuffed animals I've had since I was 5 and 3 respectively. Molly is a Webkinz brown and white Cocker Spaniel, with slightly dirty fur but the silkiest ears you can imagine. I got locked out of her account a while ago, but I still use the username I created for her, Bronzebow, to this day. Stormy was a gray and white striped cat with one of those small sandbaggy type bodies that made her perfect for throwing. I have sincerely and painfully regretted selling them ever since. Number 2, our VHS player. We didn't have cable TV in the house, but we were allowed to watch our DVDs and VHS tapes on Saturdays and special occasions. My favorites were The Wiggles and Barney, of course. Number 3, the triple bunk bed. My dad built that for us, and we helped. Well, as much as 8, 5, and 3-year-olds can help with construction projects. It has a secret tunnel in the back, a blackboard for drawing on, cubbies for our clothes, and a massive desk for all the random stuff that somehow ends up on a desk. I filmed my first short films from the top bunk. That spot always was and always will be mine. Number 4, the desert. Can't say I'll miss the bone-biting cold of winter that doesn't even bring snow with it as an apology. Nor will I miss the blistering heat of summer, when people use the phrase, the devil's out ironing again, daily. But the way the wind blows around me, being able to see for miles through the mountains, how I can see the Milky Way so clearly in the sky, it lights my way home. I'll miss those a little bit. Number 5, family. My cousin Emilio is as close as a brother. We look so alike that we've been called that often, especially when we both wear our cool wraparound sports glasses. We've grown up going to the same school, having Friday night sleepovers at my yaya's house, and making up the craziest stories we could think of. Though I don't know it yet, our dynamic will never go back to what it was then. My yaya has been a constant for my entire life. She's funny and smart and way more energetic than grandmas have any right to be. We love it when she dresses up in her black robe from China and her paper bag with eyes cut out from Walmart and chases us around her house. I'm her oldest grandchild, child of her firstborn son. She's not happy that we're leaving. Number 6, my childhood. Sorry, it's late and I'm feeling melodramatic. I didn't become an adult when I left. Boxes and suitcases. What an adventure.
Unfortunately, Karvika can't be with us this evening, but Mia has volunteered to read her piece, The Anatomy of a Goodbye by Karvika Chopra. Losing a loved one to Alzheimer's does not happen all at once, it happens in fragments. Mia reading for Karvika.
I am not a stranger to goodbyes. Life has taken people from me, some in distances I can measure, others in distances I cannot. I want to tell you how sudden it was to lose my grandfather to Alzheimer's, how it left an empty hollow inside me. But that would be a lie. Not about the loss, not about the grief, but about the timing, because I lost him long before he was gone. The first time I noticed, it wasn't serious. He walked outside wearing socks but no shoes, and I laughed. The first time he noticed, it was. In 2008 or 2009, I've started to forget things, he told his therapist. I was 5, maybe 6. The first time we all noticed, it was undeniable. The businessman who took over the family business in 1970, who kept track of every rupee, who never forgot a number, a name, a debt, was starting to lose track of money. The man who worked Sundays, who never let dust settle on his shop counter, who woke before the world did, took his time shaving his face to look neat and clean, who always wore a suit, was beginning to forget himself. But still he sat in his rocking chair every evening, tea balanced in one hand, the newspaper in the other, a slow back and forth, the rhythm steady, unbroken, as if he could hold on to time by moving with it. Alzheimer is a cruel thief. It does not steal all at once. It unravels a person thread by thread. First, the habits. Dadu always drank his tea too hot. He would sip, wince, sip again. It tastes better this way, he'd say, and I believed him. Every morning he read the newspaper, a ritual as sacred as prayer. Pages spread open beside his tea, eyes scanning the world before it fully woke up. He never read in silence. Listen to this, he would say, quoting headlines, editorials, cricket scores. He wanted to know everything. He wanted me to know everything. Then, the memories. Some days, he still carried his bag of books and newspapers, as if knowledge could anchor him to the world. Some days, he socialized like he always had, listening, empathizing, offering wisdom that arrived like echoes of a man he used to be. Some days, he didn't know me at all. Hi, Dadu. I'm Karvika, your granddaughter. He searched my face. He searched his own mind. Agitation, frustration, something like sorrow rose. I wanted to tell him that I was still here, that he was still here, that the parts of him slipping away still lived in me. When he passed in 2016, it was not my first loss. I had already said goodbye in pieces. In the way his suit stayed hanging in the closet, in the tea that never quite tasted the same, in the empty space where he used to sit, counting numbers only he understood, in the way he looked at me, searching, lost, somewhere between memory and forgetting. And in the stillness of his rocking chair, motionless now, where once there had been movement, no slow back and forth, no steady rhythm, no rhythm steady, unbroken, only silence. The thing about Alzheimer's is, it is a tide that pulls someone away in slow, unrelenting waves. It teaches you that death isn't always the end. Sometimes the shoreline empties long before the water is gone. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the person you love lingers between the forgetting just long enough for you to say goodbye.
We all live in relationship with others, with family, friends, colleagues, God. As writers, we need to understand how we are affected by our relationships, to understand how they work or fail to work. Vulnerability becomes a strength for our writers as they invite us to share their thoughts. What happens when Matthew McConaughey's Oscar acceptance speech meets the Apostle Paul's letter to the church at Philippi? Who's your hero? Sasha Magrisha asks in his own unique voice. Sasha.
When Matthew McConaughey received his Academy Award at the 2014 Oscars for his role in Dallas Buyers Club, he went on to give one of my favorite speeches of all time. The final minute of the speech in particular is one that I find myself constantly coming back to. In it, he tells the story of a very important person in his life who asked him when he was 15 years old who his hero was. After spending a couple of weeks thinking about it, McConaughey went back to the person and said that his hero was himself 10 years down the road. Naturally, when he turned 25 years old, that same person asked him if he had finally become his own hero. McConaughey responded in typical fashion, "Not even close! No, no, no!" The person asked him why not, and he told her that his hero was now himself at 35 years old. I have thought about this story a great deal over the past couple of weeks as various parties have asked me to formally reflect on my time as a Trinity Western University student, with graduation, allegedly, just around the corner. McConaughey's allusions to his 15-year-old, 25-year-old, and 35-year-old selves have especially caught my attention during this season. I remember talking with a friend of mine at the cafeteria recently about the idea that God exists outside of time and is therefore just as intimately connected with the life of my 33-year-old self as he is with my life now as a 23-year-old. I went on to imply that perhaps God shows me his unbelievable kindness today because he knows just how much I will be killing it 10 years from now. And in the same vein, perhaps God showed such incredible kindness to my high school self because he already knew of the cool things I would try to do for his kingdom in university. It was not until about a week later that it finally dawned on me how utterly unchristian this sentiment was. The idea that any version of me, no matter how awesome, will ever be entitled to God's kindness is laughable. Not to mention the fact that it flies in the face of the Lord Jesus Christ's incarnation to begin with. If any of us, with enough practice, could embody the level of character and spiritual maturity required to earn God's favor, then what was the point of Jesus stepping into our shoes and bridging the gap between ourselves and the Father? Such a gospel would be a Christless gospel, and ironically unworthy of that designation. Looking back on this episode now, I realized that I had slipped into believing a pseudo-gospel because deep down, despite years of intentional discipleship, there are still parts of me that have not yet fully internalized the Father's love. I think back to when I was stuck in the United States earlier this year due to immigration complications and noticed that a tiny part of me was actually rooting against the processing of my new student visa because it felt undeserving of that blessing. My posture then is the same as the posture I exhibit when I try to justify God's love for me by appealing to lofty philosophical concepts. My calling, and that of every Christian, is simply to accept the Father's lavish love for us, not to try and justify it. That said, there is still absolutely a place in the Christian life for the type of striving which McConaughey described so beautifully in his Oscar acceptance speech, when he exclaimed towards the end of his speech, "I'm never going to beat my hero. I'm not going to attain that. I know I'm not. And that's just fine with me because that keeps me with somebody to keep on chasing." He sounds eerily similar to the Apostle Paul in the 3rd chapter of his epistle to the Philippians. "But this one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the heavenly call of God in Christ Jesus." McConaughey had begun his speech by hailing the people in his life that he most looks forward to, that is, his wife and children, as well as the one he most looks up to, namely God. Similarly, the Apostle Paul describes a posture of looking up to God while simultaneously striving toward his most Christ-like self every single day. In the same way, I am incredibly grateful for the good work that God has done in my heart and life while I have been a TWU student. But I am even more eager to continue striving toward the more punctual, the more productive, the more prayerful versions of myself. My goal is to strive toward the 30-year-old and 40-year-old and 50-year-old versions of myself, versions which will be infinitely more Christ-like than I am today, but without ever forgetting that it will always be Jesus and Jesus alone who made a way for me to commune with the Trinity. It feels fitting at this point to conclude with the final few lines of McConaughey's Oscar speech. So to any of us, whatever those things are, whatever it is we look up to, whatever it is we look forward to, and whatever it is we're chasing, to that I say amen. To that I say, all right, all right, all right. To that I say, just keep living.
To have a heart is to learn that choosing to love might just be the most courageous thing we ever do. In her story, One by Sen Longkumar. One.
I wish I had 1,000 hearts. It is finally a bright and sunny day after weeks of overcast weather, and I have had a particularly impressive day. I go back to my room after hanging out with a group of friends who'd gathered half out of necessity and half out of want. Nothing bad happened at the gathering, and in fact, it even went exceptionally well. We all said our goodbyes and went our own separate ways. But something lingers within me. At the gathering, I had been overcome with the overlooming presence of the absence there. I tried hard not to let it on, but in truth, I was missing a friend. A friend that normally would have understood the mistime jokes I would whisper under my breath, who would have noticed if I was beginning to tire out, or who would have simply even gladly shared those moments of just existing together. And now, alone, I still miss my friend. I sit on my bed and begin to weep. It starts first with a soft and heavy weight in my chest, one that only feels deeper the deeper I try to breathe. Strange. That normally helps me feel better. A few sighs soon turn into a few tears, which then eventually turn into a flood that I can't seem to bring to a halt. I sit there, confused and confounded, oddly heartbroken and happy at the same time. To think that only 2 years ago, these eyes had no memory of how to cry. I say to myself, wow, son, you're doing it. You're crying and feeling things. Isn't that great? Only, what I'm feeling now is so much pain I can't quite figure out how to put it into words. Bitterness threatens to creep in. Don't you dare let your heart go hard now, son. It might just be the best thing you have. I think of a quote I'd seen scribbled somewhere. It read, "Why is loss cumulative? A friend and I part ways and suddenly I'm grieving everyone I've lost since I was 15. I'm not sure who wrote it or where I even saw it, but it's burned in my memory. At this point in time, I seem to miss everyone I've ever had to say goodbye to, living or not. I have often known joy and sorrow to work in tandem, where one makes way so the other can be felt more deeply. But in this quiet, raw unguardedness, I am faced with something quite different than anything I've ever understood before. I am left standing somewhere new, where for a moment in time, the depth of my grief meets with the peak of my joy. And in the middle, there I am, astonished. How grateful I am to have a heart that bleeds. I sit there in the discomfort of feeling a pain that I can't just shrug off. In years prior, I might have wished it could all just go away. In years prior, I might have begged for it to end. Or on the contrary, I might have tried to pretend it was never there in the first place, never given it room to breathe. But right now, I am here, grieving the hurt that attempts to fester in my heart. And as I am here, I find myself wishing for the impossible. I wish I had 1,000 hearts. I wish I had 1,000 hearts so I wouldn't be afraid of breaking the only one I have. I know that it would probably still break because what's reward without the risk, without the fight? I might lose an arm, an eye, or a tooth along the way, both in spirit and in substance, but at least the pangs of healing wouldn't hurt so much. I still think healing from love doesn't hurt as much as the hurt of never trying to love. I wouldn't be wary of wearing my heart boldly and unashamedly on my sleeve. So what if one breaks? I have 999 more to spare. I wish I had 1,000 hearts so I could love recklessly. The lines that I innocently drew in the sand and labeled boundaries have turned into old, mossy, fortified walls. I thought I only looked away for a second. When did they grow so big and tall? 1,000 hearts wouldn't care if I got hurt, because every last bit of hurt is worth it if it only means that the love can reach you. After all, they say hurt people, whether they intend to or not. I wish I had 1,000 hearts to make the cycle of hurt stop for those that didn't know how to love me or anyone who dared to love them. I wish I had 1,000 hearts so I wouldn't fear being left alone and forgotten, so that to the one that has to leave, I could say, "Thank you for coming and thank you for being. I've loved having you here and hate to see you leave. But as my final gift, would you take one with you as you go, as I generously offer them my heart to have and hold whenever they might need. I would assure them that the door would never really be shut if they ever wanted to come back. There's enough hearts and room for you always." I wish I had 1,000 hearts so I wouldn't flinch at the thought of learning to love someone so fully only to find out that it was all for one reason, so I could learn to let go. With 1,000 hearts, I could love without ever needing it back. If my love was once what you needed, but what you need now is no longer what I have to offer, I would step away with more grace, with the acceptance 1,000 hearts would be able to offer. I wish I had 1,000 hearts because a single one often feels too little to hold all of the love that begs to be held. Those that have never known love, those that have and now are scared of it, those that are mad and think they want none of it. I wish I had 1,000 hearts to hold them all, hold them fully with all I have. As these thoughts race through my mind, I start to laugh amidst my tears. This is so silly, I think to myself. First of all, who's ever happy because they cry? I acknowledge that I might look a little cuckoo right now. Second, I wish I had 1,000 hearts, but I don't. So do I feel like I am weaker because I don't have 1,000 hearts to give? Not quite. I've come to see that the heart I want to give is stronger precisely because I don't have 1,000 hearts. And even when this heart breaks, which it will not stay broken. I know this because the love that flows from it is not my own. It is the product of all the hearts that have loved me in my lifetime. And even more so, it is because of the love I have known and freely been given. How could this be? How could I be so broken and wounded and yet be so happy that I am so broken and wounded? How could I have a heart that's been trampled on and scarred and beaten and bruised and somehow still come out of it with all the more resolve to keep fighting on? I seek answers, but find that at the depth of it, I can only truly credit it to God. And I mean this in no way of pandering to cliches. This is truly the heart of it. I credit this to the love of a heavenly, more powerful, more compassionate Father who, with a love so aggressively gentle, has so fiercely held and protected me even through the roughest of storms, the toughest of battles. It is because I trust who holds me that now my heart has learned to be so stubbornly tender. And so, I keep loving. Because love was never mine to keep. It was always meant to be given. I wish I had 1,000 hearts, but if all I have is one, let it break 1,000 times if it means it was given. And in the giving, I'll see why it is worth giving 1,000 times more. Thank you.
I saw rumors of catering out there.
You're setting up outside.
Thank you. Sometimes home is the place you're from. Sometimes it's the place you return to after a long absence. Sometimes it's the place you create for yourself or rebuild from the ashes of an old life. Growing up in a multi-generational household provides Carmel Deer the opportunity to reflect on multiple themes within the four walls that held 4 generations of her family. A eulogy for London Court, Carmel.
I spent the first 7 years of my life in a multi-generational household. My parents were struggling financially, and my grandparents were living in a peaceful family neighborhood in Ladner, BC, and had more rooms than they knew what to do with. My elderly great-grandfather on my grandma's side was staying with them too, and my aunt who lived with disabilities had a room downstairs. So my parents temporarily moved into the suite above their garage, and due to some unexpected twists, temporarily turned into quite a few years. We lived at the end of a long cul-de-sac on the outskirts of town, only streets away from greenhouses and horse stables. The color of the house was a little embarrassing since my grandma had chosen it from a catalog and hadn't stopped to think about how the tiny square of pleasant robin's egg blue would look on a 2-story building. I still remember from my earliest years some moments with my great-grandfather, making funny faces at him from across the table to make him smile, sitting on his lap and knocking at the door at the end of the hall in the dim glow to say goodnight. Sometimes we played tea party in the backyard and we drink cups and cups of water from the hose. I cannot be sure whether these shards of remembrance are my own or a patchwork stitched together from the photos I've seen and the stories my parents recounted. When I was 2, my great-grandfather wasn't in the house anymore. The grown-ups spoke about him going to the hospital. I'd learned about that place in Curious George, when George eats a piece of a jigsaw puzzle. Where did Grandpa go? I asked. My great-grandpa was Grandpa, and my grandfather was Papa. He went to heaven, my mother said, choking up. I felt hurt. Why didn't he wave bye? When we attended his funeral, I saw tears rolling down my mother's cheeks. Why was she sad? I didn't understand that he wasn't coming back into the house, or what the ceremony was all about. I grabbed a strand of her hair and used it to wipe her tears away. Plenty of my fondest memories take place in that house in London Court. I spent every sunny day outside, blowing the biggest bubbles I could with soap and water solution, drawing intense hopscotch courses with chalk, catching butterflies and ladybugs, and helping my grandma water her flowers. My little sister Rita and I would run through the sprinkler during July heat waves and climb the old plum tree, sinking our teeth into its juicy purple fruit. My auntie and I would sit on the ground for hours, shelling peas with our fingernails to the humming of lawnmowers, while biplanes from Boundary Bay Airport whirred above our heads. Back in those days, the residents of the neighborhood took celebrations seriously. Every house twinkled at Christmas time, and on Halloween, the streets were alive with hundreds of kids dressed as fairies, vampires, and bananas. On Canada Day, people proudly displayed their flags, and barbecue smoke gave the air the flavor of summer. The early to mid-2000s were those bittersweet last moments before the age of smartphones. Kids and teens played road hockey and used the beaten-down basketball hoops every day. Despite a new wave of young families moving into the neighborhood before my grandma and aunt left, London Court remained eerily silent, no signs of children. For 4 years, my family lived in a small townhouse just 5 minutes away from my grandparents' house. We didn't have our own backyard, and so we would spend snow days and summer afternoons at that house on London Court. Sometimes, Rita and I would sleep over in our old room. Around once a week, my grandma would pick us up after school. After my brother Colby was born, my grandma would come over to babysit him often. By the time we moved to North Vancouver when I was 11, which was 1 hour north of Ladner, things had started to change with my grandparents. I didn't realize that it was permanent. With the gradual increase of medical emergencies, surgeries, and my grandmother's cognitive decline, the grandparents I knew who had been active in their church, traveled to new places, and had always been present in my life, now barely left their home. Within a few years, they were reliant on my family to give them rides to medical appointments, and that house on London Court slowly fell into chaos. My grandpa had a hoarding problem. Compared to other hoarders, he wasn't that extreme. He didn't keep every wrapper. You didn't need to navigate through piles of boxes to get through the house. But it was bad enough that it took my parents 3 years after his death in 2021 to prepare the house to hit the market. Thousands of pounds of junk after his death to get rid of. Carpets and floorboards to be ripped out because my grandparents were now unable to take care of their cat, and extensive landscaping to restore the yard to order had to be completed. My siblings and I helped where we could, which often included hours of sorting through boxes after boxes of papers, receipts from 50 years ago, junk mail, and coupons my grandpa had fished out of the recycling bin just in case, jumbled in with recent insurance papers and tax records. My grandma and my aunt, neither of them capable of maintaining or fixing the house, which was falling to shambles, were left alone. My parents came up with a plan. We were going to move somewhere that worked for my family, and my auntie and grandma could live in an in-law suite downstairs. It wasn't easy for them to leave. My grandparents had lived in the close vicinity of Ladner, BC, since my mother and sister were in elementary school, and they'd lived in that particular house for 25 years. My grandma has dealt with cognitive impairment for a few years and easily gets disoriented and struggles with her memory, and so her world has become very small. As for my aunt, who's dealt with disabilities since her teen years, it was very difficult for her to let go of the longest source of stability she's ever had, her living situation. But ultimately, a decision had to be made, and in the end, everyone agreed that my parents' plan was what needed to be done for our family. On the day that we moved my grandma and my aunt out of their house, I didn't feel sentimental at all. I was there for a few hours. They'd already left by the time I got there, and the movers had come and gone. I did the last stretch of cleaning with my siblings, my fiance, and my dad. Seeing the empty rooms, freshly painted, newly carpeted, I thought I might experience a twinge of nostalgia. I didn't, nor did I feel anything as I looked out the window onto the backyard I'd spent countless summers in and all my snow days playing in. It seemed so much smaller, and none of my grandma's flowers colored the yard like they had in my childhood. My memories of London Court had grown bitter since the house had fallen into disrepair. I was done seeing my family members struggle to maintain such a huge home that caused them so much strife. On moving day, it was no longer the place I grew up. Once again, my family lives in a multi-generational home. Because I live on campus during the school week and my own wedding is in 3 months, I feel like a visitor more than a resident. Just as my grandparents helped my parents during a rough patch by inviting them into their multi-generational household, my parents have brought my grandma and my aunt into their home when they needed it. With some distance, I've started to look back on London Court fondly, not only remembering the bitter final years. It was the home my sister and I spent the first years of our life in, and where my grandfather and my great-grandfather spent their last. It is the place where I spent hours in the sun and in the snow. It's where I learned how to garden and craft and love and grieve. But it isn't my home anymore. Now it's someone else's.
When you've lived in one house your entire life, a sudden change finds Liliana Dakotas wondering about the nature of home. Liliana, June of 2019.
My childhood home played the biggest factor in shaping who I am today. My family lived one house down from my cousin's house. We lived on a quiet street with a few old retired neighbors. Therefore, my cousin's siblings and I had free reign of the neighborhood. My nonna also lived just a few minutes down the road, so I grew up constantly being surrounded by family. Directly across the street from us was Mr. Roy and Mrs. Elva. They had a little pond in their backyard filled with koi fish, and their septic tank cover served as a tap dance floor. Beside them sat the large cedar tree that my sister Paige infamously jumped out of while she was escaping her cousin James. At the end of the street, I hit a curb on my bicycle so fast I caught air over it. Our backyard had a slope that was covered in ivy, which was perfect for tobogganing when it snowed, and served as a landing pad for when we jumped out of the swing set that sat above it. The view spanned all the way from Mount Baker to Vancouver Island and everything in between. My cousin's house had a set of monkey bars and a treehouse that was constantly filled with spiders. They also had a mini four-wheeler that got flipped one too many times, and a perfect basement to play the dart game. And this game consisted of closing your eyes and running as fast as you can, either directly running into someone else or a wall. Eventually, our cousins moved. Mr. Roy and Mrs. Elva passed away, and our other retired neighbors sold their houses. The topic of us moving had always been talked about, but never actually happened. Our street felt seemingly empty with nearly no neighbors. In June of 2019, I was at my field hockey wrap-up party at my teammate's Olivia's house. She had offered to host the party. My mom was the manager, so she was there as well. I had been in the backyard with my teammates and noticed that some time had passed and I hadn't seen my mom. I asked one of the other moms where she went, and she stared at me for a second before answering. She had to go home. Why? Your dad called, said she had to leave. I was getting the hint that I shouldn't ask any more questions, so I didn't. Then I received a text, not from anyone in my family though. I received a text from my older sister's boyfriend at the time, Kyle. Are you guys all safe? Yes. Why? Do you know what happened? No. Your house is on fire. What? Why? The chimney caught fire. How? I asked. About 20 minutes had passed before my best friend Jenna's mom offered to drive me home. We drove down her small street and I sat in the back seat of her car. I stared out the window as we drove past the flashing lights of fire trucks and swarms of neighbors who had gathered in close-by areas to watch out of pure entertainment as plumes of smoke seeped into the sky. I got out of the car and found myself surrounded by my cousins and family, all who had beat me there. My dad was standing by the fire truck, parked right outside of our house. He was telling the fire chief to put out the fire instead of watching as it burned down our home. My mom was pacing back and forth as she watched our baby photo albums slowly melt into our desk in the office that no longer had a roof over top of it. That home had seen every single birthday, almost every Christmas, and every other major life event that occurred from the time I was born until I was 15. My parents bought the house a couple years after they got married and renovated it to make it truly theirs. It wasn't big or glamorous, but it was theirs, so it was mine too. Water damaged our belongings more than the actual fire did. By the time the fire department and insurance company had assessed the situation, nearly 6 days had gone by. 6 days of wet, soggy clothes, shoes, photo albums, baby books, and every single other thing we owned trapped in a smoky, damp, and now humid because of the sun in June house. Mushrooms were growing out of our carpets and everything reeked. Insurance coverage was the longest process, as my dad doesn't like getting rid of things. He tried to save everything he could. The insurance company did not like that, but we eventually got through it. We moved to a new house that was a few minutes away and a few blocks over from our original home. Nearly 6 full years later, we have rebuilt and moved once again to the original location of where I grew up. Our house is almost double in size and sits a lot higher than the old one did. It feels weird to drive down our street again. Nearly every house has been torn and rebuilt. Our cousin's house is no longer there. Neither is Mr. Roy and Mrs. Elva's. The cedar tree is still there, and so is the curb I jumped over on my bike. Although we no longer have a swing set or a slope covered in ivy, our new house doesn't feel like a home, as we have only just moved in the past couple weeks, so maybe we just need to settle in more. But it doesn't serve the comfort that my childhood home had. I don't think it ever will. The walls sit bare and empty, and no memories or stories have been made of it. My sisters and I are older now. We no longer host birthday parties full of family and don't run up and down the street with our cousins anymore. James now lives in a high-rise downtown, and I can't remember the last time we played the dart game. I haven't ridden my bike in years, and a major holiday is yet to pass where we don't spend it in someone else's house or entirely out of the country.
Memories of significant firsts brand themselves into our brains. In First Day Out, Juice Belvin reflects on his first basketball game. Juice. Mike.
Might need help to raise this. It's okay. All right. You hear me? Good? Good. Okay. Memories are fascinating. Out of every second, minute, hour, day, weeks, some things just never go by and leave your brain. So special you can see it like you were still there. You smell the same things and you hear the same sounds like you were there in that time. I grew up in a basketball household. Mom played basketball for Fresno State. My dad played basketball as well. Both my older siblings also played basketball. So for me, I had a choice, but I never really had a choice. They put me in soccer, football, and baseball. I was terrible at all those things, but the only sport I was really good at was basketball. So from a young age, I strived to be the best at that. On a warm Saturday morning, I woke up at around 6, super early, because today was my very first basketball game. My dad was the coach. That morning, I ran to his room, jumped on the bed, and I said, "Dad, get up. It's basketball. This is ready for basketball day." He said, 5 more minutes, Juice. And me being a respectful young kid I was, I did not let that happen. I bothered him for another 10 minutes, and he finally got up. He made me a breakfast that day that I will never forget. Really, because he will still make the same thing today. He made me eat a banana, and as a 5-year-old, I absolutely hated bananas. The smell, the taste of it. But that day, I ate that banana, mainly because he told me it would give me superpowers. Obviously, he lied. But I ate that banana that day. The game was at 8:30, but I was in such a rush, I was ready at 7. While my parents were getting ready and getting my older siblings ready for they had games later on that day, I had a great idea. Let's go outside and get some shots up. I didn't realize that it was 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning and no one wanted to hear a ball bounce outside, but I did anyway. I only shot the ball around 5 times before my mom came outside screaming and yelling at me, but I was not giving in. I tried to stay outside for a few more minutes, but she made me come inside. That was a very hard concept to understand at that age. And now that I'm older, I still shoot in the gym sometimes at 7 a.m. The league I played in was called The Wood. It was a youth basketball league, and we were the first game because obviously we were the youngest. So with the game at 8:30, I got to the gym right around 8. Here's the scene. The rest of the team is getting situated. My dad called us over, and we get ready for a basketball game. We have warm-ups. No one can make a layup. We're all just throwing the ball against the backboard, hoping and praying that the ball goes in. But here we go. With all the practice and I did and love for the game, I kind of felt like I was the best on the court and better than the rest of my teammates, but I was very supportive and encouraging. After 10 minutes of layups and passing drills, the horn blows and it's time for the game. They're all excited as we're jumping around and screaming, and we're ready to play. The first 5 for both teams walk out. The ref throws the ball up for a jump ball, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember a thing after that. All I know is people were screaming my name the whole game, and I don't know what I was doing. The next thing I remember is we were all chanting, 2, 4, 6, 8, who do we appreciate? And after that chant, we shook hands, and the coach told me good game. Some memories never fade because of the level of importance they hold. Basketball has been a part of my life since I was born. I've been through a lot for the sport. I've even crossed borders for it, and I will continue to cross more. I've let this game take a toll on my body, as my knees hurt standing here right now. As I approached my last university game, I thought about my first game a lot. As it turns out, I was still excited for my last game as I was for my first. The same excitement that I was when I was 5 years old is here when I'm 23. Well, 24 now. But as an athlete living on his own, I remember that first game a lot, close to my heart.
We're going to unveil the Static magazine right now, so I'd like our team members to come forward. At this point, we would have offered you copies and made a big to-do about it, but we're going to make a big to-do about it anyway. Let me get the sample. Everybody come up. This is a thing of beauty. This is the serendipity issue of Static magazine. I'm afraid this is the proof copy, so it's not perfect. But what I would like each of you to do is come to the mic, state your role and your name, and the one thing that you learned about writing or editing from having produced this as a team.
My name is Jaden. I didn't do as much as I could have on this, but I did some copy editing, and should I hold it like this? Yeah. Something that I learned about the copy editing process is it was like a little bit out of my comfort zone, because it's like these people wrote these papers, so they should know better than me, but I was able to make some suggestions and hopefully improve them. But yeah, it was a fun process.
My name's Carmel, and I was a developmental and copy editor for Static magazine. And something that was really cool about this was how collaborative it was, not only between the editor and the author, but just everyone as a team had to work together to get these pieces in place.
My name is Chelsea, and I was a copy editor and developmental editor as well. I'd say that I learned most about all the different types of styles of editing and what it really takes to make something like this happen, and how many little intricate parts there are. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Erin. I was the editor-in-chief / project manager. I don't know what we ended up calling it, but I had a lot of fun getting to see all the different intricate pieces of it, like Chelsea was saying, but also I loved the developmental editing and getting to find people's voices in their piece and working to make that come through in their writing more. And it was really fun. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Hosanna. I was the graphic designer of our issue. Over the semester, I learned having multiple eyes on the layout was very beneficial, as we had minor and major mistakes up to the very end. So yeah, we worked as a team and we got it done.
Hi, my name is Abby. I did developmental and copy editing. I learned what a developmental editor was and what a copy editor was. And I've realized that I love copy editing and just enhancing someone's work, and it's something that I continue to love doing even in my workplace, and I've just found different areas to involve that, and so I really learned a niche that I love now.
Yeah.
My name is Sadie, and I was a developmental editor and a proofreader, and one thing I learned is how to communicate better with writers, so the bigger suggestion I would make, the stronger reason I would give, and then also just when style changes had to be made, just explaining that it was just like a formatting issue, and then sticking to that. Yeah.
Hello, Juice Belvin. I was the editor. It felt good to be trusted with someone else's essay and someone else's work. I kind of felt like the burden was on me to make the essay perfect, but like sitting it back and forth trying to make the essay as best as possible, yeah, it was good though. So.
Hi, my name is David. I was a proofreader and a developmental editor. My favorite thing was developmental editing. I had the pleasure of working on Jaden and Sen's story, and that was super great, just kind of like trying to get into their mind and just learn writing from them and just their stories as well. So.
My great joy is having this in hand, and it would have been enhanced by having a whole box of them, but working with these young editors and the writers here in this class has been one of the great joys of my career, and we'll do it one more time. Thanks very much. We're going to have a quick break. The caterer showed up and set up outside, and I'm sure you're all dying of thirst. Please let the readers grab the water and food first, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thanks. bit of a program change. Through my notes here. Bella has joined us and is not feeling well, so she is going to save the last of her energy to read for us right now. I'm just trying to find my note. Which is out of order and I can't find it with my bifocals. So, the name of it is Persistent Needs. Recall, it's in here somewhere. Where the heck is it? There it is. Why does something so beautiful cause so much pain? Bella Gibbons reflects on the ways her experience in a ballet dance academy ultimately led to her finding a greater purpose. Bella, Persistent Need.
If it wasn't for begging my mother profusely, I wouldn't have been standing there in my tiny dance studio, in my tiny tutu, in the tiny pink ballet slippers, surrounded by other tiny, aspiring prima ballerinas. At the age of 3, not much dance growth happens, but the passion is evident. Dance practices consisted of us preschoolers struggling to decipher our left from our right, creating pizza slice shapes with our feet, and running around playing games. I was outgoing and driven to do my best. At the age of 3, you are still figuring out how to even walk gracefully, let alone coordinate your arms and legs. Yet despite the frivolousness of dance recitals, when you can't even tie the bows on your ballet slippers, I was Little Miss Perfectionist. When I stepped out onto that stage, I became the ballerinas I studied in the DVD version of Swan Lake. While other girls were waving to their parents in the audience, my mind was focused on what move was next. I was there to make my parents and my grandparents proud. You're moving to a ballet studio that's just a little more challenging. But what about my friend Maddie? Your friend from kindergarten dances there. It'll be good, Belle. My mom assures me that everything will be wonderful in my new dance studio. At the age of 7, your identity is greatly shaped by people and life experiences. Dance became real. It wasn't the same as it was when I danced in the tiny studio in my tiny tutu. I was older and wore a purple leotard with leather tan dance slippers. Every move, every slip up, every sneeze and yawn was monitored. I was in a class of 10-year-olds, dancing with the older sister of the friend I was once promised to dance with. We sucked in our tummies, turned our feet out, tightened each working muscle, and tried with every fiber of our being to breathe on top of it all. Maybe this wasn't my passion. I need a new leotard. The one you have is good enough, but I don't like the way I look in it, I calmly protest. I never felt comfortable in those stupid leotards. At the age of 11, you start to compare yourself to others. I became highly critical of myself, critical of my dancing, of my body, and of the way my face turned bright red after each practice. Contrary to my younger self, I was shy and introverted. My dance teacher told us to grow tall and not wide over the time of summer break. Why is this costume so itchy? If I engage my core and suck in my tummy any longer, I might pass out. Focus. This is your passion, remember? I can still feel the sharp sensation of my dance teacher's nails, poking and flicking the muscles I was supposed to be engaging. Turn out, she says, as she runs her nails on the side of my legs. I understand this is the common ballet experience, but why? Why is it accepted and expected to make us feel insecure? I am curled up underneath the desk against the back wall of my bedroom, tears streaming down my face, and my forehead is firmly pressed against my knees. My mom walks in, but she cannot fix this. She cannot relieve me of my insecurities, change the way I look, or help me fit into a smaller leotard. At the age of 14, you start to take charge of the things in your life. I started to realize that I could explore new forms of dance. My ballet dance academy shut down, and it was time to start fresh. I decided to return to the original studio that ignited my passion for the sport. I took competitive classes, which, despite the arguably petty and toxic nature of competitions, was where my spark came back. Miss Tomiko made such an impact on my dance career and life. She was the dance teacher who instilled the principle that dance and faith had a place together. I was there to make my family, friends, and God proud. Dance was my form of worship. At the age of 18, you start to grow in your identity. I started to learn who I was. I became the same outgoing and passionate girl who stood in that tiny dance studio in her tiny pink ballet slippers. I took risks and I joined the Trinity Western University dance team. Though before I joined the team, I was at a point in my life where I was willing to let go of dance. I mean, someday I'll have to, right? I could still find time to dance by myself. I just wouldn't be on a team. Someday I'll have to call it quits, as life never gets simpler. At the age of 20, you realize you still don't have your life together. I was so naive to believe that I would have had everything figured out by now. It's almost as if I have less of my life together than I did in high school. In high school, each step was planned out for me. My path was set before me. In university, I realized that I constantly yearned for that crumb of familiarity, that piece of my 3-year-old self, that spunky and carefree girl. At the age of 20, I now realize that dance is my peace. Dance puts my soul at rest. Not only am I using dance to communicate with God, but He is using dance to work healing into me. It extends past the realm of words. It exemplifies the human experience with the divine through a physical form of communication. It becomes the embodiment of our past experiences, traumas, triumphs, and expressions of gratitude. Dance reveals my most vulnerable state as I expose my flaws to get closer to God. At the age of 3, I had no idea where my life was leading. I lived in the present, wondering if my friend Maddie was going to be at practice that day. I've learned that it's okay to not know where my life was heading, when my Creator has a plan for my life. Thank you.
Strangers can be terrifying, but in your most vulnerable moments, a stranger might be the one who saves you. Stranger Danger by Tiying Zhang.
Knock knock. Excuse me, are you the one who live above me? It was the beginning of this fall semester. I was still living in a small city in Arkansas. And I was with my friend hiding from the heat, having an icy drink and talking in my car. When I saw the guy who lived downstairs coming from his balcony towards my direction after seeing my car. I roll down my window and look at him and think in my head, oh, not my Wi-Fi again. So I reply, yes, it is me, what's up? I look at him suspiciously. I just came to ask you, do you remember the old man who used to sit at the entrance of our parking lot? Oh, of course I remembered him. Ever since I moved into this apartment, I would often see him sitting at the entrance of our parking lot, sunbathing and being very observed. Sometimes in his wheelchair, sometimes standing there with a walker. This man often intimidated me because he would sometimes approaching me out of nowhere. I remember one time I had just come back from Walmart. The sun had just set, and the world felt pressed, and everywhere was still, as if the night held the breath. I was carrying the groceries toward my apartment, ready to be part of the silence, when I heard click, 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 a sharp sound getting closer to me. My blood ran cold. It sounded like metal on bones. I turned, looked over my shoulder. There he was, the old man. His walker tapping the ground, echoing through the empty lot. He looked at me, and I want to run. I want to scream. But instead, I opened my mouth to ask if he needed any help. And before I could speak, he said, "Do you have food?" "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't buy any food that can be eaten right away. If you don't mind, I have some raw beef that you can take it back." I can hear my voice shaking. "Well, what are you waiting for? Go and cook it for me." I couldn't believe my ear. And his answer was totally unexpected. And I was scared to death because it seemed like he wanted to go into my apartment and make me as his personal chef. I still refused him. And that's when he turned around and walked away, swearing the whole way down. But as far as I was concerned, I'm still breathing. And I'm already feel good about it. I waited for him to walk far enough away until he disappeared from my view, before I dared to take my stuff and run home. The second time I bumped into him was about a few weeks after, when I was coming home from class. As I was backing into my parking space, the old man was standing not far away, waiting for me. When he stops me, click, click, click. He came towards me and he walked and he yelled at me, "Do you have any cash on you?" "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash on me. I can't help you." I turned him down again, which made me feel very uneasy because I feel like he's targeting me. I was thinking about calling the police, but for me, the police officer is more scared than the old man. So I just ran back home as it hadn't happened. Fortunately, I never saw the old man after that. Coming back to the present, I replied to the guy who lived downstairs. Yes, I remembered him. What happened? The guy downstairs from me smiled at me and said to me, "Last night around 11 p.m., he opened the bar of my balconies and come knocking my windows. When I opened my window and asked him, 'What can I help you?' he pointed to your car and asked me if I know which apartment this girl who drove this car lived in. Of course, I didn't tell him. And afterwards, he went upstairs and knocking on the door who lived next door to you, which she had a camera on her doorbell. So when she saw the old man she didn't know knocking on her door, she called the police straight away. I don't know if the police asked you about the situation, because they asked me about the situation this morning where you weren't home. So now I see your car here. I thought I should let you know what's going on." I felt rush emotions at the moment, because only I knew the lock on my apartment door was broken and could be opened by a slightly push. In addition, I recalled I heard a lot of noise outside last night. And at the 30 degrees weather of September at the time, I remember feeling a chill. I probably had a scared look on my face, and the man who lived downstairs saw my expression and reassured me. I know you were scared, but my roommate and I live right downstairs from you. If anything happened, you just stomp on the floor as hard as you can, and we'll be right up, and we will protect you. His reassuring words lifted the chill I was feeling, and I was ready to write down my Wi-Fi password to him. Instead of going home after thanking him, I immediately went to Home Depot to buy a new door lock. It just so happened that when I got home, the police was coming down from the stairs of my apartment, and the lady officer looking at me and spoke. "Do you live in this apartment?" "Yes, ma'am." "Oh, we just come to ask you something about the old man." I recount everything I knew to the police officer clearly, and the lady officer, seeing that I was scared, said to me, "You should have called the police right away. We will protect you. And from now on, the old man is not allowed to be in this area. If you ever see him again, you can just call the police." Then he left our parking lot in her car. That night, I changed my door lock and finally felt the sense of control. The fear was still there, but so was something stronger, the comfort of knowing I wasn't alone. My neighbor's words and the officer's promise stay with me. "We will protect you." Yes, I still remember the old man, but more importantly, I remember that I faced fear and chose not let them follow me home. Thank you.
One of my former students once aptly defined the personal essay as existence criticism. One of the challenges of narrative nonfiction is to journey to a deeper place where soul meets experience, to make a connection between imagination and intellect, between heart and head. In Braiding Bridges, Grace Masioka explores the very real connection between heart and head as she reflects on her journey to discover her heritage between two worlds. Grace.
I enjoyed going to the hair salon. It was more than just a place to get my hair done. It was an experience, a ritual, a connection to something bigger than me. Growing up in Rwanda, I never really saw braids as something to be celebrated. Rather, there was something to be persevered through. Every Friday afternoon, after swimming practice, my mom would always scold me for something I had apparently done to my hair. It was either too greasy, too short, too scattered, or too puffy at the roots. I'd sit on the couch watching Catfish while meticulously undoing my braids, an oddly therapeutic yet overwhelming task. The process felt like a slow death wish, my fingers cramping as I carefully unraveled each strand, knowing that 5 hours of patience would eventually lead me to another long day at the salon. The next morning, we would set out early, the streets still cool from the night's breeze. The salon was always alive, felt like another home where time seemed to fold on into itself. My mom and I would spend almost the whole day there, debating which color, texture, or style of braids best suited the season. The decision thrilled me. I imagined the eyes that would follow me, the jaws I might drop on my way at home. Once I was in the chair, the real endurance began. My neck would grow sore from the twisting and turning, trying to find a comfortable position while the stylist pulled and looped each braid with precision. The scent of curling irons and blow dryers mixed with the sharp smell of hair oils and coconut-scented products was something I weirdly found comfort within. Laughter filled the room, whispers about the new father in town, giggles over disastrous first dates, passionate debates about the latest Nollywood films. These conversations stitched together shared experiences, binding women from different ages and backgrounds in the warmth of sisterhood. And then there was my mother. I always knew that these trips were not just for my hair but her too. Between closing business deals and running a household, she rarely had time to relax. But in the salon, she was different. She would lean back in the chair, chatting with the stylist. Her face was no longer burdened with stress. In those moments, I saw her not just as my mother, but as a woman. one who was allowed to be soft, laugh freely, to reminisce on her youth and to exist outside her responsibilities. When I moved to Canada, the relationship with my hair changed. I quickly realized that straight hair was considered the norm, an unspoken expectation that curled around the edges of every beauty standard. Suddenly, my braids were no longer just a hairstyle, but a statement. At first, I hesitated. Would it be easier to just conform? Would I grow tired of the questions, the fascinations, the assumptions? But with every new set of braids, I learned something new, something unexpected. My hair became a bridge. Explaining the history and significance of braiding felt like sharing a piece of myself, an invitation into my own world. It was a way to hold on to home while standing in a place that felt so foreign. Finding someone new to braid my hair became its own adventure, as such that led me to strangers who, over the hours spent twisting and weaving, became my friends. We bonded over Burna Boy's latest album, playing softly in the background, over shared experiences of being far from home, over the small joys that made the distance bearable. When I sit in the chair today, I see more than just a reflection in the mirror. I see my mother's hands, gently smoothing my hair before a stylist begins. I see the women in the salon, their laughter and stories echoing in my mind. I see the long hours of patience and the quiet pride that comes with wearing something crafted with care. I now understand that braids were never just about beauty or convenience. They were and still are a testament to endurance, heritage, and love. Braids remind me that I am not alone, that my roots stretch far beyond where I stand. That beauty is not just about appearance, it's about a connection. And no matter where I go, I carry my heritage with me, woven into every strand. Thank you.
Most of our readers tonight are media and communication majors, but even they are not exempt from miscommunication. In Confessions of a Girl Who Cannot Communicate, Patience Dosen chronicles what happens when chronic overthinker meets crippling silence in this comedy of a tragedy and miscommunication. Patience.
If communication were an Olympic sport, I wouldn't even earn a participation ribbon. In fact, I'd be the idiot standing outside the stadium, staring at the entrance, contemplating whether I should go in, but ultimately deciding against it because what if they don't let me in? When it comes to speaking, I like to think of myself as a minimalist. Why use words when a lengthy silence can do the trick? My family asks me, "How's your day?" I respond with a shrug. My roommate inquires, "Did you watch the last episode of Sabrina without me?" I look up at the popcorn ceiling as if the answers is written right up there. My professor's email, "Do you need an extension?" I let the email sit in my inbox like a museum artifact. Look, but don't touch. Most people see obstacles as challenges to overcome. I see them as full stop signs with flashing neon warnings. Abandon all hope, ye who enters here. Need to ask for help? No. Better let that problem grow until it becomes that being that follows me around like a sad, judgmental ghost. Need to express frustration? Absolutely not. I'll just internalize it until I develop an ulcer that can speak for me. The root of my communication crisis? Fear. Not fear of failure, not fear of success, but fear of the most terrifying two-letter word in the English language. No. What if I ask for an extension and the professor says, no? What if I tell my roommate I'm upset and they say no? Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. But you get the point. Rejection is like the boogeyman under my bed, except instead of hiding under the covers, I just never get out of bed.
Maybe one day I'll learn to speak up. Maybe I'll ask for that extension. Maybe I'll tell my roommate, yes, I watched the last episode of Sabrina without you, and I regret absolutely nothing. The ending sucked, by the way. But until then, I remain a ghost in the machine, a silent, slightly awkward ghost, of missed opportunities and poorly timed shrugs. And if you're still listening up to now, congratulations! You've just witnessed the most communication I've managed in weeks. Progress. Or maybe I'll just scrap this later. This is a draft, after all.
In the new North American dream, Paige Dakotas reflects on today's fast-paced world and our need to take a moment and slow down. Paige.
As a society, we have forgotten how to slow down and be in silence. This has been heard time and time again from most likely your grandparents or even your parents. But imagine a time when we didn't have to wake up, scroll Instagram, check other social media, read the newspaper, or listen to the news at breakfast. Then we get in our cars and drive to school or work while filling our minds and listening to a plethora of options. You can have the radio, Spotify, Apple Music, and SiriusXM. Oh, and if you're not in the mood for music, don't fret. Everyone and their mother now has a podcast you can fill your mind with. While you sit in traffic on your commute, it is filled with even more background noise like sirens, horns, and engines. Imagine a time when there was silence, when you didn't have to listen to everyone's opinions on matters that don't even directly affect you. You don't know how the world even operated before the time of screens, radios, and cell towers on every corner. When I imagine my ideal life, it is nestled away somewhere away from all the noise and distractions, and I am just out in the open with fresh air and not a soul around. We have become so closely knit to one another that we are unable to even think for ourselves anymore. People's opinions about politics, diets, clothing, the environment, and education are constantly filling our minds. How are we supposed to think and come up with new ideas, innovations, or thoughts, and just let go and let God take place when we can't even have a moment of quietness and stillness? I oftentimes find myself in a daydream every now and then. When I grew up in a time where there were no smartphones, when I didn't have to see what my favorite influencers were uploading to TikTok that day. I know this could all be solved, or I could get a flip phone, or I could run away from the bustling city to the back 40. But then I would miss my friends and my family. I would be so isolated that I wouldn't know what to do with myself, with too much time to think and process things. I just think if everyone collectively put down the constant buzz of social media, life would feel so different. I hate thinking about who I would be if there were no social media. Would I even be the person I am now? Would I like the same things? Would I wear my hair the same way or listen to the same music? The thought of it all makes me sick. Who was I when I was a little girl running around my backyard barefoot without a screen glued to my face? Who would I be without fitting myself into a mold to match a specific aesthetic I saw on Pinterest? I know my friends and family influence me, but we've all been told to fit into a specific aesthetic or mold, whether we're conscious of it or not. A cookie cutter aesthetic. Buy this product. Don't like your face? Don't worry, there's filler for that. Want to cut your hair and become a corporate girly? Just type into the search bar on TikTok corporate girl and there's a whole new aesthetic waiting for you. Want to be a horse girl? That's still trending this year. Bella Hadid is still dating her cowboy. Don't worry, you won't need to throw out your cowboy boots and cowboy hats bought off Shein just yet. Overconsumption core, constant background noise. Imagine just unplugging, shutting off the phone, being present 24/7, and doing your job without the temptation of picking up the phone when you get bored. Imagine suffering through an awkward interaction of seeing your ex-best friend from elementary school without having the option to be on your phone. See, I think the thing is too, we are self-diagnosing ourselves with different terms for feelings we feel, and humans have felt for years. But now we need a pill to fix a problem, rather than just working through it in the silence of our minds. But what if we didn't have to label anxiety and be put on medication just because our screen time is 10 hours a day and we live off caffeinated drinks like Red Bull and Celsius and are severely addicted to nicotine? Yeah, I probably wouldn't call that anxiety, but maybe that's your body's way of screaming at you for a change. And a prescription for another pill bottle to add to your bedside table isn't going to fix that forever. Now, how hypocritical of me, as I get coffee every day, and I'm proud of myself when my weekly screen time report is 5 hours a day. We make up new terms online every day for emotions that we feel, some harder to process than others, and yes, prescriptions can be helpful, but we don't need to fill a new prescription for every single emotion or discomfort that we feel. We are the first generation to have screens glued to our faces, prescriptions changing our brain chemistry, and drinks with so much caffeine in them that they're banned in the EU. When the time comes, when I have my own family, I hope to raise my kids out of the city. I hope they run around barefoot in the backyard like I did when I was a kid. I hope they're able to name the types of plants and animals found in the backyard before they're able to name the characters of Paw Patrol. I hope this new generation can use their imagination and make games up rather than rely on a screen for entertainment. I hope to be in a place where I can hear the birds chirp in the morning and the crickets at night, where trees provide crisp air and I can watch the seasons come and go, where I don't feel obligated to act or be sure to fit into some aesthetic. I hope to take in the stillness and peace that we have so carelessly thrown away and forgotten about as a society, where someone's thoughts or opinions that I heard online did not persuade me because I have had the time to sit in silence and become strong in what I feel, where we can think for ourselves and just be still.
As we approach the final reader of this evening, I'll remind you that there is a QR code on the back of the program where you are able to vote for the People's Choice Award. There are valuable prizes, both for the reader, writer, and for the audience as well. What's that? A door prize. Yes, door prize for the audience. So now we will enjoy our final reader of the evening. When Amma tells her granddaughter Mia a bedtime story, they find themselves in a world where reality and legend collide as Amma's words bring the magical tale to life. Beneath the celestial sea, Mia Su.
My Amma was a wonderful storyteller. While there's much that I miss about her, one thing that I often find my heart aching for are her stories. When my family would go to visit her and my Agon, I would sleep in the room that my dad grew up in. This room was oddly shaped, small but tall, with a slanted ceiling, the highest point sitting parallel with my bed. At night, the lofty navy walls and popcorn ceiling were illuminated by a nightlight with small star cutouts, which scattered celestial markings across the room. The shelf at the head of my bed was filled with tales of adventure, love, and mystery, as well as Dr. Seuss and the Peanuts, but none of these could compare to the ones of my Amma. Sometimes she would tease me, telling me to go to sleep and that I was too old for stories. I assured her I wasn't. As I listened to my Amma, her face earnest, almond eyes sparkling under round glasses, I absent-mindedly stroked her hand and her arm, mesmerized by how soft her skin was. Her voice painted vivid sceneries in my mind that seemed to spill into the world around us. I heard the bustling chatter and commotion of the seaside village crescendo, the sound of the waves lapping at the docks and the swoosh of a sail unfurling. The scent of salt drifted from the sea into my room as I watched the fishermen of the village hauling large, sopping nets from their boats. I looked over to see the young boy, Urashima Toru, walking through the village. Suddenly, he came to a halt, his attention caught by an eruption of hollers and jeers that echoed from down the street. Curious, he made his way over to see a group of kids buzzing with fervid anticipation. Peering over their shoulders, he saw in the center a turtle being tormented by sticks and stones. Affronted by the scene, the boy scolded his peers, took the turtle, and left. He brought the turtle to the water, where he set it free, then went home. The next day, the boy was walking by the sea when he saw the same turtle had returned. Grateful for the help, the turtle thanked him and shared that she was the daughter of the Emperor of the Sea, and to show her gratitude, she wished to invite him to their turtle kingdom. The boy accepted and climbed onto the back of her shell. As Amma continued, her voice cued the looming shadows on the walls to melt into waves, which rose above us as we began the descent into the ocean. The stars cast by my nightlight morphed into shimmery scaled fish, which darted about in blurs of color. We followed the turtle and the boy as they led us into the fantastical depths. The bright teal waters sparkled around us, an assortment of different sea creatures passing by. Suspended in a free-standing realm of sky under sea, the stars, moon, and sun glistened together. Turtles came to greet us, their soft emerald shells looking fuzzy and half-realistic, half-animated, taking unconscious inspiration from the Disney movie Nemo. Great coral castles of orange, pink, and purple materialized before our eyes, and we entered the palace adorned in gold and shell. A feast was displayed on a table of pearls, and for what seemed like only a few days, the boy dined and played with the turtles of the kingdom, forgetting entirely of his family and life back home. After a while, the boy remembered his family. He grew homesick and knew that it was time to leave, so he said goodbye to his turtle friends, and the daughter of the Emperor of the Sea took him again on her back, returning to the village. In the low tide splashing upon the shore, the turtle presented to the boy a beautiful ornate box. It was a gift, but never to be opened, for if it was, bad things would happen. The boy took the gift, said one last goodbye, then headed into the village. The village was quiet and still, lacking its usual liveliness, the wind and the waves sounding louder against the backdrop of eerie silence. The empty boats creaked at their docks, as if the sun set, as if it knew what was to come and did not want to be around to witness. The boy went to his home, excited to tell his family of his great adventures, but when he arrived, he found that no one was inside. He went out on the street, searching for his family, but only saw unfamiliar faces. He asked one of these strangers if he knew where his family was. Upon hearing the names, the man shook his head, confused, and informed the boy that the family had not lived in the village for many years. Horrified, the boy realized that in the past few days he had spent with the turtles, 300 years had passed in the world above. The boy walked away, scared and sad, wanting to return to the turtle kingdom. He then remembered the box and decided to open it. In doing so, thick black smoke erupted from the box, engulfing him entirely. As it cleared, he stood there, no longer a boy, but an old, frail man with a great white beard. The turtles had the gift of long life and had shared it with the boy for his good deed, storing away his old age in the box. The old man looked up at the night sky and saw the stars twinkling bright as they shifted back into my stars, projected upon my slanted ceiling above me in my bed with my Amma. She leaned over and kissed my forehead, my nose, my cheek, my other cheek, and my chin, leaving smears of lipstick before laughing and rubbing them off. Our ritual complete, she left, closing the door gently behind her, leaving me content with my darkness and stars and imagination still soaring. I pictured Amma as a young girl, finding Urashima's box washed up upon the shore of the rocky beaches of her hometown. Maybe she too had been curious, peeking inside despite the turtle's warning. I wondered if she had felt the smoke as it enveloped her, stepping out to look around and realize just how quickly time had passed. Perhaps I too would stumble across the box and soon find myself my Amma's age, stunned by how life had moved in only a moment. As I drifted off, rocked to sleep by the lingering waves, I thought no more of the box. For in this moment, my Amma's voice echoed, still painting the scenes of turtles and stars under the sea, living and shining on, blissfully unaware of the time.
Let's have a round of applause for all our readers and editors. If you could take a moment now to vote for your favorite story, you'll find the QR code on the program. We'll tabulate the results, then present the People's Choice Award and a door prize to the lucky member of the audience. In the meantime, we can turn on the lights, I think, and you can grab some more food while we're waiting for the tabulation to work here. We should have music or a drum roll or something. Just one note for writers and editors, when FedEx finally brings the books, let's say some better arrive by Monday, I'll come to campus, set up a time. So everybody, maybe Monday might work to pick up from my office. Yeah, great. Oh no, it's a tie. Has everybody voted? 22 responses. Tiebreaker coming in. Okay. Now, if someone can guess the day of my birthday in November, whoever comes closest to the day of my, will be the
28th.
Door prize winner, come on.
10th.
5th.
19th.
6th. 18th.
I'm gonna guess the 2nd.
21st?
24th?
30th.
6th?
Who said the 18th?
Yeah.
You said the 18th? It was the 15th, so congratulations. Thanks for joining us tonight. And the People's Choice Award goes to Mia. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us this evening. In closing, I'd like to remind you, as writers and editors of narrative nonfiction, of the magic you create, and to inspire you, our audience, to take up a magic wand of your own. I'm so proud of you all. Thank you very much. Big thanks to Carson Bird for live stream and recording. Thanks to the caterers for delivering it to the wrong place and then finding us here. Yay, caterers! Grab some food on your way out and enjoy. We don't have to move the chairs. John Thompson said it was okay to leave them here for exams next week. So we can leave everything as is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorraine.